Now, because we're a little bit behind the US, our equivalent to the leftist meltdown post the Trump election in 2016 is just getting started here in Australia, and boy is it salty. Now, I've been hearing political pundits on the right claim that in light of the election result, the left will now have to re-examine themselves, wind back their radical climate change policies and embrace of identity politics, that they need to tack towards the centre to win back some of that working class vote they lost, and recognise that not everybody identifies as a latte-sipping, Australia Day hating inner-city socialist. But to that I say, wishful thinking. We have the playbook from the US post the 2016 election. In the UK post Brexit, the radical left will double down on all those things: climate change hysteria, identity politics, and their steady diet of hate, labelling everyone that disagrees with them as bigots and Nazis. And it's already begun. But before we get to the salt, and there is a ton of it, let's recap what actually happened here. As I record this in the afternoon on Tuesday, the coalition government looks like they'll get 78 seats in the House, a gain of 2 from 2019, and the Labor Party probably 67, a loss of 2. The Senate will have a much smaller crossbench, which is good news for the government, but it's still going to be difficult for the government to get legislation through. Now, some are calling this a Trump or Brexit moment. Not surprisingly, The Guardian embraced this narrative the day after, because why have any introspection when you can blame the Aussie version of the deplorables? Now, there were some similarities to Trump's election, but let's make some important distinctions. Scott Morrison is not an outsider. He's an establishment politician. If Morrison were running in the Republican primaries in 2016, he would have been one of the cardboard cutouts that Trump trounced. Now, don't get me wrong, the coalition's win, given the obstacles they faced, is one for the history books, akin to Labor's victory in 1993. But it was hardly a ringing endorsement. The coalition's primary vote was down, although much better than the polls predicted, and down less than Labor, which was much worse than the polls predicted. The Greens polled about the same, and some of the vote went to minor parties, namely United Australia and One Nation. But what Morrison did do, like Trump, was appeal to the silent majority. The average Australian is just trying to get ahead, buy a house, put their kids into a decent school, or don't want their superannuation touched. His messaging wasn't brilliant, it was simple and predictable. Bill Shorten, on the other hand, came off as suspect. He talked of radical changes, but he couldn't tell you what they'd cost. But you knew it would cost you something, because he was coming after your franking credits, your capital gains, your negative gearing. Labor looked and sounded risky, and the coalition, despite the revolving leadership door, appeared to be the safer, more stable option. And full credit to Morrison, there's no doubt he's a better communicator. He's warm and personable. He's got a down-to-earth, almost folksy quality to him, like a political Warren Buffett. And importantly, he's across the detail. Shorten just isn't. Big Mac Bill couldn't answer basic questions, and he became arrogant when pushed, and like Hillary, he felt entitled. He thought, as many did, that it would be a cakewalk. It was his time. He'd dreamt of becoming Prime Minister since he was a kid. The script had been written, but reality didn't comply. However, Hillary's presumptuousness wasn't entirely his own fault. On the eve of the US elections in 2016, the polls had all but called it for Hillary, and so it was here in Australia. The latest news poll before the election had the coalition's primary vote at 38% and Labor at 37%. The results now show a more than 3% error in both directions. The last news poll before the election had Labor with 80 seats and the coalition with 65. And a lot of the lefty pundits were following the script.
No, but I'm expecting it to fall around 81 or something. I'm basing that on things I've heard from people who should know, that there's kind of a baseline, I think, for Labor of about 77, 78, and then there's a bunch of seats that are in doubt. And even if most of them break the coalition's way, you end up at a low 80s sort of a figure. So that's what I'm thinking.
This is predicting a Labor Party win. You would expect certainly north of 78 seats for the Labor Party, but somewhere in the 80s.
An Ipsos poll that shows an 8-point turnaround in the two-party preferred vote in Queensland, that would deliver quite a lot of seats to Labor. You talk about whether the polls are trustworthy. There's been a couple of failures in the Trump election and Brexit, but they're pretty good in Australia.
But 52-48, Nick Rees is, historically across the last couple of decades, would be a very impressive result.
That delivers a result of around 83 seats to Labor.
And even the exit polls got it wrong.
We have breaking election news for you right now. The results of our exclusive 9 Galaxy exit poll.
It is the very best predictor of what we will see tonight, the Labor Party to win. Our exit poll is predicting Bill Shorten will be Prime Minister for the next 3 years.
Nationally, our pollsters have found Labor is polling 52% and the Coalition is on 48%.
So it appears as though, similar to the US in 2016, some portion of the electorate told the pollsters one thing and then went out and voted the exact opposite way. The polling companies have as much soul-searching to do as the Labor Party does. But on to the salt, and as promised, there is plenty to go around, from the mainstream media and irrelevant know-nothing E-list celebrities to just your average morally superior Australian leftist. But let's start with this one, because it captures all the bigotry bingo phrases in one tweet.
RIP Australia, we just voted for climate change denying, white supremacist, Islamophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, anti-worker conservative government with no agenda beyond enriching their wealthy mates because we're a nation of bigoted morons.
And check out the rest of her timeline. It's filled with positive, uplifting messages. If only we could all be so morally superior and gracious in defeat. Daniel Best, I would argue, wasn't at his best when he delivered this message to LNP voters. Now, if you're concerned about Daniel's well-being, unfortunately you can't inquire about him because he's decided to protect his tweets. If only he could protect himself from himself. Alice with the anime avatar is quite the bigotry bingo player. That is, when she's not admiring K-pop stars. Max Black is feeling a little unsafe, and given his Twitter timeline, I would have to agree. With a brain like his, he is definitely in danger. And I think this decision by some to add water drops to their Twitter profiles was a masterful self-own, because now they just signify tears, the tears of bad losers incapable of self-reflection. Now on to an E-list celebrity I've never heard of, Michelle Laurie, who tweeted, "Australians are dumb, mean-spirited and greedy. Accept it." Well, you'd think that she would practice what she preached, seeing she is a self-described Buddhist. Oh, to be morally superior. And who better exemplifies the condescending, morally superior attitude of the chattering classes than Jane Caro? Now, luckily I was able to get a copy of this tweet before she deleted it. Then she followed up with this one. The reason some of the words have been blotted out is because they've been reprinted by news sites, and that's the only copy we have since Caro deleted this tweet as well. But if you use your imagination, you can probably guess what she was saying. Now, of course, many people, including me, volunteered to drive her to the airport or pack her bags for her. So, of course, Caro did what all feminists do. They resort to female victimhood. And then she felt compelled to explain herself in a Sydney Morning Herald article with the unbelievable title, "An Election Tweet, a Barrage of Abuse and Response, a Plea for Civility." But of course that's not true, is it? Because it wasn't just an election tweet, it was 2 tweets in which you called half the country backwards and turds. Then you have the nerve to turn around and call for civility. This cartoon was tailor-made to describe people like Jane Caro. It encapsulates her hypocrisy and arrogance perfectly. Then there's the delusional millionaire Lisa Wilkinson that took it upon herself to write the Prime Minister a letter and remind him of how women are suffering from the completely and utterly meaningless gender pay gap. Remember, Lisa Wilkinson is on a salary of $2.3 million a year, and in this letter she opines, "As we navigate these often confusing, unsettled times of change, we are now looking to our Prime Minister like never before for real leadership, both here and on the world stage, with a genuinely clear direction that doesn't alter course with the latest news poll." But they aren't confusing or unsettling times of change. In fact, the electorate voted against change and for stability. You see, this is the problem with people that have no objectivity, that can't draw on anything other than their own emotions and project them onto society. Prime Minister, you may have noticed we're all feeling just a little broken right now. Broken-hearted, in fact, at how toxic the Australian body politic has become. I wonder why that is. And a return to basic civility in public discourse would be a great start to that healing. Again, pure projection. Many people are celebrating, and the comment I've most often heard is, "We dodged a bullet." There was an enormous sigh of relief across the country that tax it if it moves bill wasn't elected. You're broken, and I'm guessing your husband Pirate Pete is also broken given this tweet from a week ago. We know too that the climate is sick and tired, and things are getting worse. Most of us now fear the kind of planet we are leaving behind for our kids and grandkids. And it goes on, nothing remotely related to a fact or objective analysis. Just truth by assertion, no humility, no self-reflection, out of touch, elitist nonsense. But there were some who were a little more specific with their scapegoating. You see, the biggest swing against the Labor Party happened in Queensland, where their primary vote fell to just 27.3%. This brought on the hashtag Quexit, in which emotional children fantasise that Queensland could be set adrift, cut out like a cancer, because they had the audacity to vote the wrong way. I mean, it couldn't have anything to do with arrogant, self-absorbed climate alarmists travelling from Victoria to Queensland to tell Queenslanders they should oppose the Adani coal mine and thus deprive themselves of much-needed jobs and prosperity. The fact is, Labor did not speak to the people in northeast Queensland. They just lectured them on how they need to put their imaginary global warming apocalypse ahead of their own livelihoods. Yeah, that was always going to be a winning message. And of course, what would a leftist election meltdown be without the threat of moving to another country? Aussies rush to New Zealand visa site after federal election. New Zealand has reported a huge spike in the number of Australians considering a move across the ditch since the federal election was called. Immigration New Zealand said the number of visits to the New Zealand Now site surged tenfold on Sunday as Aussies woke to the news of a coalition victory. The website received more than 8,500 visits from Australia on Sunday, about 10 times the usual number, and 512 of those visitors registered interest in a Kiwi visa. That's compared to just 20 people a week earlier. Of course, if these idiots had a brain between them, they would have known that you don't actually need a visa to move to New Zealand if you're an Australian citizen. But I suspect, like the bloviating idiot celebrities in the US did, none of them actually will follow through on their promise, which is a pity, really. We should do all we can to encourage these shitheads to piss off and leave us alone in this magnificent country of ours. And isn't it typical of egomaniacs to think that they would be welcomed with open arms by New Zealanders? Bill Shorten, like Hillary Clinton, lost the unlosable election. He managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and now the progressives are showing their true colours. It's unfortunate, but I cannot see the current tantrum subsiding. I expect it will become permanent and the outrage to ratchet up. Get ready for more eggs and milkshakes and perhaps worse. I wish it wasn't the case, but as has been observed in the US and the UK, this will get worse before it gets better. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.